we'll kick things off. Well, thank you everyone for joining this morning or wherever you're tuning in from. In this webinar today, we'll be showing you some ways to kickstart your next no-code web app using FME 2022.2. That's a lot of twos. So meet the presenters. We'll start from the left.
I'm Mark Island, and technically I'm a knowledge and community expert, I think, but everyone knows me as the FME evangelist.
I'm Jenna. I'm a technical support specialist on the FME desktop side.
And I'm Kezia Yu, and I'm the technical support specialist for the FME server side.
Excellent. And if this is your first time in Livestorm, just a few pointers here. On the bottom left, you'll see that help button. So if you are having any audio issues, you can click that for 4 simple troubleshooting steps. Share your reactions with us during the webinar using that React button on the bottom. And then we have the questions and chat tabs. So under questions, you can leave any questions that you might have during the webinar. We will be hosting a live Q&A at the end, and we'll keep an eye on that throughout the webinar as well. And then the chat panel, keep letting us know where you're tuning in from there. We also have the polls tab, and we'll be launching a poll there shortly. If you would like to download the slides to follow along, you can just click that download button on the top right there, and that will download the deck for you.
So we'll just go over today's agenda. So we'll start by giving a very quick FME Server overview just to make sure everyone has at least seen FME Server before. Then we'll start with giving a quick demo of an app, and then we'll walk through building workspace apps, automation apps which are new, and gallery apps, and summarize with some of the points that we've gone over today. So we'll start with the first poll. The question is, how often do you use FME Server Apps?
Yeah, and you'll see that launched in the polls tab there. And folks, once you submit your vote, you'll be able to see the results come in live as well.
Yeah, I think we're interested to know who's using server. I mean, we assume that most people here are going to be using server already, but I'm sure not everyone's using server apps. So we just wondered if you use them sometimes, all the time, never. And yeah, we get in quite a mix. I'm looking at the results as they're coming in. So I'm seeing quite a mix there. How long do we leave the poll going?
Yeah, I think they're just another few seconds or so
Okay.
here. It looks like most people have voted. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I forget users can see the results as well as they're coming in. So
Yeah, it looks like a lot of folks haven't started using server apps yet. So excited to show you all how you can make the most of those today.
Yeah. And about a quarter of people here don't use FME Server, so that's great. We'll show you some of the things that you can do with it. You might not get much out of the technical side, perhaps, but the possibilities you'll see, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess on that note, we can move on to a FME Server overview. Seeing that we have some people who have not used FME Server before, I think it's good that we're doing this just to make sure everyone knows what we're going into, right? So yeah, what is FME Server? FME Server is a platform that is used for handling large volumes of data at the enterprise level. And it has 3 core capabilities, which is self-serve, self-services, real-time workflows, and automations. So these are all things, if you're familiar with FME Desktop, that you could extend the functionalities using FME Server. You're able to do these core functionalities. So we'll start with the flash demo from Mark of Click Converter, if you can take over that.
Yeah, I'm going to show a quick demo of somebody who's actually used FME Server Apps for a real website. So let me share my screen. So you should be seeing my screen now. And this is called Click Converter. Actually, let me just quickly go back to the slides. Can I switch that around? There we go. So yeah, so what is Click Converter? Well, Click is it's a call before you dig system run by the Dutch Cadastre. So every time you want to dig a hole in the road for some reason, you have to call them to find out what's there. and users submit a request to the Cable and Pipeline Information Center, which is what CLIC stands for in Dutch, and in return they get a CLIC report. But the CLIC report's not necessarily in a format that everyone could read or put into directly into a CAD or GIS system. So one of our users, Ate in the Netherlands, came up with this great idea to create the CLIC converter, which would do exactly that. It will convert all of your CLIC report into a format that can be used in your GIS or CAD. So next slide. So yeah, so they've got about 150 customers. They do an average of 10 transactions per day, so 10 reports, which, I mean, I don't know if that sounds a lot, but that seems quite good to me, that people are doing this call before you dig and getting their reports converted this way. And yeah, so this is a great example of somebody creating a business out of an FME Server app, saw the opportunity and went and did it. So let me just have a quick look at their website. So this is all their website. I'm sure this bit at the bottom is talking about cookies, but I can't read Dutch, so I don't know what it means, but I'm just going to click something and see what happens. Okay. Yeah, so this is their website. It tells you all about what they do and how it works. And you can go and look at all of the different converters they've got. When you do that, you can log in, and I've got a special login for today. We can say, well, let's convert my CLIC report to CAD, or my CLIC report to GIS. Do things in bulk. I'm not sure what the third one is. I should have asked about that. My Dutch isn't that great, but yeah. So this is an example of an FME Gallery app, which I'll be demonstrating later, and all of these are individual FME Workspace apps. So if I click one of those, basically it will come up with a dialog, and I can just hit the upload button or browse resources to upload my CLIC file that I've received from the Dutch Kadaster. I click the OK button, and it converts it into a format that people can use in this case, in their CAD format. So it's very simple. This is, as we'll see shortly, an FME Server Workspace app. And like I said, the other page is a FME Server Gallery app, and we'll find the difference about those in a bit. I just wanted to show you a live system that's out there. I mean, this is fantastic. It built a sort of business out of this capability and set it up online, and just the design as well. They've designed the look and feel of the apps to match their website as a whole, which is something we can do. We can customize the look of the apps to look how we want them to. So yeah, it's fantastic what they've done with that. I'm really impressed. So yeah, congratulations to those folk, and everyone else. Yeah, take this as an example of what you can do with these apps, and it's very quick development is the point as well. Okay, so back over to my colleague Jenna. We back to you, Jenna?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's just a great example of a real life example of how you can use FME Server as a business, Mark showed. But yeah, seeing that a lot of us haven't used FME Server apps, we'll just start with what is an app, right? So an FME Server app essentially is running a workspace, an FME desktop workspace, without needing to access or log into FME Server. And this is done by an app. When the app is created, a token is generated with all those necessary permissions so that the end user doesn't have to log in or access FME Server separately when running this. And you might want to use FME Server apps maybe because you're either delivering a self-serve portal like Click Converter, or maybe providing a space where where clients can upload data, or a tool where clients can validate their data or collect extra data. The options are really endless depending on how you want to configure this. So the types of apps that you can build are workspace apps, which are app pages that can run a workspace without, again, needing to log in or access FME Server. And then gallery apps, which is a landing page kind of where you can collect all those separate Workspace apps in a single page, and the users can access whichever workspace they want from the gallery app. And then automation apps, which are new in 2022.2. And this allows users to manually trigger any automations that you'd want to build. So we'll begin by giving an example of a Workspace app, which would be, Click Converter would be kind of an example of a Workspace app. So I'll be going over that with you. So hopefully, I know not everyone is familiar with FME Server, but we are with FME Desktop. I've just got a Workspace built here that comes from a previous webinar, actually. If you're interested in checking out the data wrangling webinar, this would be a great maybe prerequisite to this webinar. So what I have here is I'm starting with the CSV or an Excel data sheet with some data from found pets from a lost pet database. And then I'm running through some testers and attribute creator, creating some labels pretty much so that when I upload this to FME Server, there are some user parameters that people can search against. So to upload to FME Server, the first step would be, well, having an FME Server login account. But the next part would be to actually go up here to publish your Workspace to FME Server. I've got a few connections here. I'm just going to select our internal demo server. And then when you click continue, it'll log you into your FME server and you can choose a repository. A repository is pretty much a folder on your FME server where you can collect your workspaces that you want to run against. And then I'm just selecting my personal folder here, and then I'm selecting all the files that I want to upload along with my workspace, similar to when you create an FME template file. You just want to select all those data files that you want to upload. You can go in here and just make sure everything is being uploaded as well. For me, I'm just uploading some shape files. And then when I continue, I get an option to register as a service. So in the beginning, when we went over some of the types of apps you can create or the types of services that you can run, we have downloading and streaming. And the difference between downloading and streaming is downloading would allow the end user to download a zip file or whatever format that you dedicate for the data files that they would like to download, just like how for Click Converter, they can select CAD file or GIS files. And for data streaming, it'll allow the end user to kind of just see the data streamed onto their app to see the results from the workspace being run based on the user parameters that we've selected. So I'm just going to select data streaming. And when I publish, we're just going to publish this to the designated repository. And you can actually get a direct link from here. I've already uploaded this. I'm just going to switch to my FME server. When I refresh this, it should be in here. Perfect. 8:13 a.m., 8:13 a.m. Yep, this is the workspace that I just uploaded. And we can see that the workspace is now perfectly in here. Yeah, so the goal was to allow users to run this app. So we're going to create an app from this now. So we'll go on from where we started. So from here, we can create an app based on this workspace that we've created here. And we can do this by going into Workspace Actions. And then you can select Create a Workspace app. And this will give you and what this is doing is basically taking that workspace and you can grab it and now you can create an app from it. And here you can title and customize your app to make it look kind of like Click Converter's app really. And you have options to customize your header, your logo, the background color to make it as aesthetically pleasing as you'd like, logos, banners. So we'll start with some basic titles. I'm going to call this found pet data. Just in the title here, you're not allowed to have spaces, so I've just named it that way. I'm just going to do a description just for demo purposes. You just have to make sure all the services are set correctly. So yep, this is a data streaming service. I've got the correct workspace selected from my repository. The expiration date, I just have it set for 10 years. And for the actual parameters that I want uploaded, I just want the users to be able to search their pet name. So I'm going to just deselect the Esri shapefile. And yeah, I've already created this app before the demo, but these are all just options that you can use to customize. And I'll show you what this kind of looks like. So I've added some dogs and cats to the banner and makes it look a little prettier. And let's say I want to look for my dog buddy that went missing. Hopefully he's found. And what the app does is it's created from, if I can go back to the workspace, the HTML report generator. I've kind of pre-customized what my report should look like. And in here, I've added a map. And that map is showing up in the FME Server app. So if I go under here, all my dogs or all my possible dogs that have the name Buddy have showed up here, along with some locations on the map of where they've been found. And hopefully a user can use this to find their lost pet. And next we can move on to automation apps, which is new in 2020 2.2.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna, for the Workspace app demo. I'll take it from here for the automation apps. So with FME 2022.2, we now have a new feature that allows us to publish automations as FME Server Apps. This enables users to run complex workflows on demand with configurable input parameters. So before FME 2022.2, FME Workspace apps could only trigger a single FME workspace at a time. And with this new feature, automation apps, we can now trigger more advanced multi-workspace and multi-action workflows that are built-in automations, where you can chain workspaces together or run them in parallel. So this will benefit end users and allow complex workflows to be created, shared, and leveraged across organizations. So let's jump into the demo. Let me share my screen. Awesome. So this is an example of an automation app that has not been customized yet. It is the default look with the FME server title and logo. And it looks very similar to a Workspace app, except in the back end, instead of running a workspace, it is running an automation. So here are some example parameters that a automation app can take and trigger an automation and workspace afterwards. So we have choice, color, date, calendar. You can select a file from FME Server resources folder. We have number, password, select yes, no, and we can click OK. And that will let us know that the automation is triggered. Another example would be this other automation app that allows for a file and geometry. So this is where the end user can select and draw a polygon on a map, or they can jump into a resource folder and select a file that they'd like to upload and run the automation. So let's jump into FME Server and see how we can build these automation apps. So first, I'd like to jump to the Build Automation App page, which is under the Server Apps. And this is very similar to Workspace apps. Instead of selecting a workspace and repository here, we would select a manually triggered automation. And also this type of server app does require authentication. So automations are significantly more powerful than just one workspace, and therefore authentication is enforced for automation apps. With the complicated permission dependencies around automations and more resources, we decided that we would like end users to log in before running a automation app. And we would love any feedback if you guys have other use cases where you'd rather users didn't log in. And I'll showcase what that looks like in incognito mode. If I were to open a automation app, then I would need to log in first for running the app. And here I can access the business owner's automation app. Going back to FME Server here, once you select an automation, then you will see the parameters that can be showcased in the automation app. And once again, you can customize the look and feel of the automation app just like any other server app. Something I like to point out as well would be that the parameters that you see in the web page at the end, they are configured in the manual trigger of the automation, and I'll showcase what that looks like very shortly. Going into the Manage Automation Apps, here is where you can see your automation apps and manage them as well. So if you have automations that are enabled, then you will see no warning sign, but we do have warning signs if a manual trigger automation is disabled or stopped, then you will be warned that the automation app may not be ready to run or be shared. And jumping into automations now, going to the Manage Automations page, and we can open the business owner demo. I'm just going to stop this really quickly to showcase how we can configure the parameters to allow for user input from an automation app. So opening up this workspace, we have three parameters, user parameters, but I'm going to focus on the first two, which is the file and the selected geometry or area of interest. And so these two parameters are configured in FME Workbench or FME Desktop, where you want to allow users to input these parameters to run the workspace. So we would go into the manual trigger. This is what kicks off the automation, and jump to the Output Keys tab and go to Manage Keys. And this opens up the Manual Keys editor. Here you can add manual keys, which are similar to how you would add user parameters in FME Workbench, and match it to the parameters that you need for your workspace. So I need a file as well as a geometry. So I would select the file URL as well as the geometry and configure them on the side panel here. And then once they're configured, we can jump back, apply them, and jump back into the workspace parameter and add these keys now. So we have the manual keys, and you can select file, which we've created, and the geometry, manual geometry key. Apply. And something else that I like to talk about is that with the addition of automation apps, we have 3 new keys that we can use. And these are the automation app ID, automation app name, and automation app user, runtime user. So if I open the text editors, here are some other keys that can be used downstream for parameters. So we have resources keys, general automation ID and name, event keys, which are event time when the automation was ran or any events that happened. And now we also have automation app keys, and this includes the ID of the automation app, once again, the name, as well as the runtime user, which you can use for statistics or gathering information on your automation and the app itself. So I'll click apply, save, and start. And if we go to the automation app and click OK, then we can see that we have these information that's collected in the log. So for example, we have the ID of the automation app name, as well as who ran the automation, which is admin, since I was logged in. So I'm going to jump back into the slides and follow up with some things to consider and note for automation apps in general. So manual trigger automations need to be started and enabled so that your automation app can be shared and ran at runtime. And we need manual trigger automation specifically so that you can pass the user input parameters to the automation and into the parameters of the workspace. Next thing, we'd like to ensure that the app token has the correct permissions. So whenever you create a server app, a token is created, and depending on the manual key that you create, there may be some permissions that you need to look at. And also, I like to emphasize that security and authorization is required for this type of server app. And finally, some of the new keys that we highlighted include the automation app ID, automation app name, and runtime user. So with that, I think I can pass it on back to Mark for gallery apps.
Thanks. Yeah, we're moving along quite quickly today. If anyone has any questions, please pop them into the question panel, and we're happy to answer them as we go along. Because want to make sure that everyone sees what's going on and make sure they're up to speed on what we're doing. So yeah, what I'm going to show now is this thing called a gallery app. And I'll sort of demonstrate why we need that as well as how we create that. So what is a gallery app? Well, it's a way to assemble multiple workspaces and automation apps. So Kezia and Jenna have showed you how to create these different apps for workspaces, apps for automations. And basically we can put them together in a sort of its own website, if you like. We don't need to build a workspace to do this, although I have done, and you'll see that in a moment. And we can just define those gallery apps in the server interface. And not only can we create this sort of website that points to other apps, we can also include links to general URLs as well, other websites. So this is what a gallery app looks like, and this is what I'm going to demonstrate in a second. It's I've got something called the FME Community Cafe that runs online, and this is just a place for different resources for the FME community to go to visit and to get that sort of thing. So I'll be showing basically how I set that up and how the gallery app works. So let me do that. I will share my screen again. Okay, so what you see here is my FME server for the community. And these are all of the different workspace apps that I've got. For example, when this webinar's over, we'll give you a code where you can go online and pick up a badge, a virtual badge on the FME community. And to do that, I created an app called the Webinar Badge app. And what that does is well, I'll show you the workspace in a moment, but you put your username in on a community and it awards you the badge automatically. And so that's a great example of a FME workspace app. But I've also got apps to do other things, like I had an app to submit things for a hackathon at the user conference, or we've got an app to play the GeoGuessr game. We've got an app for badges. For a leaderboard. So I don't want to have to give you a different URL for every one. I don't have to say, oh yeah, go to safe.com/webinar badges for this and safe.com/cityguesser for that. I want to provide you with sort of a landing page and a website that you can go to find all of these in one place. And that's what a gallery app is all about. So yeah, just to show you, this is what the Webinar Badge app looks like. So later on, you can enter your community name and you'll get the webinar code that we give you and you'll get awarded a badge. So yeah, so those are server workspace apps. These are my gallery apps, and I've got one called FME UC Community Cafe. It started at the user conference, but it's just ongoing. This is what it looks like. You'll see it looks very similar to that click converter, except I've got a few more apps of different sorts on here. If I go back to my server apps, we can see all of the content that I had on there is also on the screen here. So what can I link to? I can add a link to another workspace app, or I can add a URL. And quite often you can nest these gallery apps. And so quite often what I do is I put a link in one gallery app to send me to another one. For example, on the FME Community Cafe, I just put a link on there yesterday to go to another gallery app, which is where I'll run this 12 Days of FME contest that's coming up shortly. So right now, so this is just pointing me to a different gallery app, with this different header in it. And there's nothing there yet because I haven't added any items. So how do I create that? How do I add it? How do I add any items? Well, let me go back to the gallery app, find the 12 days gallery app, and it's this. And you can see in the description, I can embed a little bit of HTML, which came in very useful because I was able to put this sort of red heading image in there. So I can put things in there. I can customize this just like a regular app. I can put a header, a browser icon. I can put a footer in there, some footer text, which again can include a little bit of HTML, a little logo at the bottom as well. But really the key thing here is I can add other links to other server apps. So for example, I can say, click on that. Let's add a link to a Workspace app. And I just created one called Apps Webinar Test. So this is, I'm going to give that a label. So this will be a test for demo or test for webinar. I can put a tooltip. I click here to run this test workspace. And then I can upload an icon as well. So I can browse and find an icon. Let's see, one of these icons in my community graphics. I can click OK, add that link, and it's there. I could add another link that maybe says is a URL, and I can say, well, let's send this to the safe website. Click here to go back to the safe website. I can put a little icon on there again. If I had the safe logo somewhere, I could put that, but I'm just going to put something, anything. Let's see. We'll just do a different one. So I've created this gallery app and I've added some different links and Workspace apps to it. And if I had any automation apps, I could add those in here as well. So I click OK, that's created. Now I can go and visit that page. And we have those two apps now available. One of them is a link directly to the safe website. And the other one actually runs this test app. So you get this and it just says enter your name. So I enter my name and I click OK and it runs the workspace that's connected to the app. And it says, OK, that's done. So there we go. That's how we create that. So that's very basic example of how we do this, how we create these gallery apps, what we can point them to as well. But since we've got plenty of time today, what I'm going to do is show you a little bit more depth, what you can do with some of these apps. For example, that one just ran a plain app. It wasn't customized in any way. There's no style to it. It just ran and then it said I completed it, which is great, but it doesn't really give you that good feeling of how can I put it, like an integrated website. The nice thing about that click converter is it sort of looked like one continuous website, even though some bits of it were FME Workspace apps. So how can I do things like that? Well, one of the ways that I do that is I stream information back as a HTML report in my Workspace. For example, if I go to the badging page and redeem my safe webinar code. So this is where you would get your community badge. If I type my name in there, and I'm just going to type in a random badge number, it doesn't exist. It'll tell me that code doesn't exist. But what happens is I click, it runs the workspace, it tries to award the badge, says it can't, but it doesn't just say I ran and finished. It sends me information back, and it says I couldn't find a webinar with that code. So how is it doing that? How is it getting that information back and giving it back to the user? Well, I'm doing that by writing a HTML report in my workspace. So if I zoom in a bit with my workspace, what this what happens is I read a list of the webinar codes. I check if it's okay. I read the username. I try to find that username in our Salesforce database. If I find it and if it's a valid code, then I award the badge. But what I do then is I create a HTML report and stream that back to the user so they know the result of the translation. So here I say it was the webinar name, the webinar date. Congratulations, you've been awarded the community badge for this webinar, and so on. And then that gets written out to the to a HTML writer, and it gets streamed back to the user when they run that app. The other part of the report is I've got a header and a footer that are generated as separate reports. And these are custom HTML parts that I've got in here that like set the background color, they set the header, and so on, did a little header image, that sort of thing. Yeah, webinar badge results. So what the point of this is, the header and the footer here, is that I'm trying to make the results of the stream back to you look exactly the same as the app workspace, the app itself looks like. So again, if I go to this is a workspace app. It's got this bluish background color. It's got a certain header and a certain footer. The report I get back from the workspace looks almost exactly the same in style because I've made it deliberately look like that. And it looks like an integrated website in that way. And I can even put links in there. So I can go, hey, return to the webinar badging, return to the community cafe, and so on. So I can direct people around to different parts of this, just as if it really were a website. And FME is sort of serving up live results to the users as they browse. Another example of that comes under community resources. We've got these transformer cards that we created as trading cards. And if I click on here, we can see what they are. And what it's doing now is it's running a server app, but on server apps, you can actually say run immediately without waiting for user input. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just running that Workspace app with immediate input, with immediate running. Excuse me, I'm stumbling over my words there. I run that Workspace app immediately without waiting for any user input because I don't need any. And it just brings up this sort of result. Again, this is me generating a HTML report within Workbench and streaming it back as a result. So this isn't a Workspace app or anything. This is what I've streamed back as HTML. Even the way it flips over like that is very straightforward HTML, a little bit of JavaScript maybe, but you can put that into a HTML report generator transformer like I'm doing here just by using a custom HTML piece of information like so. So I can just put my custom HTML into there and it gets streamed back. So someone was asking earlier about styling and things, and this is one way that I achieve that. Yeah, and then I can click go back to community resources. So that's one of the tricks I've got for making this look like an entire workspace that's built together when in fact it's nothing of the sort. It's really just gallery apps, workspace apps, and results HTML streamed back from workspaces. The other thing that I can do as well well, actually, let me show you a couple of things. In the community archive, what I've got is hidden connection reveal. So if I click on that actually, again, it runs a workspace app immediately, no user input. It runs the workspace, and then what it should be doing now is it should be embedding, don't know why that's not working, but it should be embedding a plugin from a third-party site that I could use to sort of do a before and after picture of a workspace. That's quite annoying that's not working. Let me see if this one works instead. Here we go. So this one worked at least. This was FME's favorite transformer contest that we ran earlier this year. And so basically it says down here, it's powered by Common Ninja. Basically, it's a third-party widget that I can embed into some HTML that I created in my workspace and just stream it back into here. And you can basically run this, and it sort of looks like, again, it's their website, but it's really an embedded widget from a different website. So that's one other thing we can do. And also, finally, I think if I go back to the gallery app that I created for the community cafe, if I scroll down to the customize part, we've got the header icon, the browser icon, the banner. But in the footer text, what I've done is I've embedded a whole bunch of HTML in there. And basically, these are links. They're little, you can see it's got a href. It goes to a certain link, and that link is actually a workspace that we're running. And it's got a little icon, and it runs a workspace when you click on that icon. What does that do? Well, if you go to there, you can see we've got little happy face, medium face, and sad face. And when you click on that, that's what that code does in there, that little HTML in the footer. It puts the icon there. And when you click that, I'm going to click the happy face because I don't want anyone to be sad. And it says, thanks for your feedback. If you're happy, we're happy. We're having a great day. You can let us know by a feedback form and so on. And that also sent a little thing to a database as well, telling me that somebody said they're happy. So that's good for me. But yes, the important thing there is that you can put little bits of HTML inside that footer text. Yeah, and some things you can't put in there. I can't put those widgets in there because it won't run all sorts of code in there. It's just basic HTML. If I want to do some sort of JavaScript, then it needs to be running a workspace and returning that as streamed data. But anyway, yeah, so gallery apps, that's how we put together a web page like this, or the click converter. You can find this page at fme.ly/communitycafe. You can try it out. This is a great gallery app with different resources for the community. And yeah, it's really interesting once you start to put these together and start putting your workspaces together to stream data back into the web browser, which is what this workspace does. And it really is very straightforward to do. Even though this looks complicated, it's just because I'm very picky and I like dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure everything looks good. But it's pretty straightforward to do this. You just write HTML, stream it back to the HTML writer, and when you upload the workspace, you say this is a streaming workspace, and that's it. So I think that's done. I think we've covered all of the different apps. I'm going to just check. Let's see what comes next. Do we have any? Okay, so we'll do a quick summary, and then we'll look at some of the questions that we've got. So summary about what we've done here is that FME Server Apps are basically easy, no-code web apps from a single workspace, all complex automations to actually run a process without you having to do any sort of major coding. And they're really very easy to do. You just create a workspace, publish it to server, and say, I'd like to turn this into an app. And when you do that, you get a web page basically that lets any user you like run that workspace through a form on a website. And it's very straightforward to do. It's like a rapid development technique. And you can really create some very nice sites, and you can create some very quick prototypes as well. You can just, within a couple of hours, you can have a quick prototype workspace and website together to do something like this. And then you can organize it all with gallery apps. You can share them across your organization, and yeah, they're just fantastic. So if you're interested in what you saw today, please do get in touch. try FME 2022.2. That's the old, if you want to use Workspace apps or gallery apps, earlier versions of FME will do that. But if you want to use automation apps, you'll need 2022.2 to get that to work. But yeah, chat about that with us on the community as well, community.safe.com. You can ask questions in there as well. And we have some resources, which I guess since we share the slides, you'll be able to find these resources pretty easily from in the slides. And we may send it out in the follow-up email, which we always send out. But basically, there is an article that on our knowledge base on the community that tells you about server apps. There's the Academy, which is our sort of online training facility. And we have a module on there that's called Create No Code Web Apps. And we did a webinar before called All About, Ask Me Anything About Server Apps. And you can find that on safe.com/webinars. You can find any of the webinars we've done previously on there. And like I said, you can claim your community badge. So if you go to the link that Elizabeth just chatted out, fme.ly/webinar badge, it should take you to the FME Community Cafe. And you can go to the community badges and redeem this webinar code, CPLGW. So what I can do is M4, that's my test user. I can just type in CPLGW, and we're running a web app. And it should say, congratulations, thank you. You've been awarded a webinar badge for this no-code web app with FME 2022. It was on this date. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so this is a fantastic tie-in between this badge that you can earn today and the fact that it's a no-code web app that I created. Yeah, okay, so I guess we're going through all of the different things that are coming up. We'll get to the Q&A shortly. Actually, I was just showing stuff on screen, and I wasn't sharing my screen, which was pretty dumb of me there. But yeah, if I going back to this code, yeah, you'll open it up. It'll go back to the web app I was showing earlier, and you can type the code in. Yeah, check out our upcoming webinars, safe.com/webinars. All of the webinars upcoming and older on there. We've got one coming up next week on FME and high quality cartography, which is going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to that one. If you want to do some basic FME training, there is the FME Accelerator, which you can basically learn the basics of FME in 90 minutes or less, and really kickstart your FME usage. So if you're fairly new to FME still, and you haven't taken any training before, this is a good way to get started on that. And some of our partners are even starting to offer this same accelerator course as well. I know in New Zealand, for example, you can do that. We have a book, an ebook online, The Ultimate Guide to Spatial Data for the Enterprise. Again, I would say this is for relative beginners. It's not a deep technical dive into anything, but it's very interesting. The theory, I guess, of spatial data integration and why FME looks like how it does, and if you need something to prove to your boss why you should invest more in data integration and FME licenses, and this has probably got a lot of information in there to say, hey, we should be doing this, and FME will let us do this. So read this book and then let's see what we can do. So it's very, very good book for that purpose. I think it would be anyway. I had a read through. Yeah, save the date. We've got a FME user conference coming up next year in Bonn, Germany.
And actually,
September. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should note too, apply to present. That's now open as well.
Yes.
So I just dropped a link for that.
Yes, it is. The call for presentations is open, so you can find that on our website. And yeah, I think we'll get a great turnout for that, because a lot of people in Europe couldn't come to Vancouver for the last conference. So hopefully we'll get a lot more people coming to this one. A lot of Europeans. And also, we do Gartner Peer Insights. So if you have feedback on FME that you want to share with the world and tell people about FME and how great or maybe how not great you feel it is, you can share your experiences there. We want to know really what you think about their FME. And this basically is shared with everyone in the world anonymously. And as a basis of that, that's one part of how Gartner evaluates different software and puts it in a certain part of the quadrant, I guess. So yeah, if you write a review, that can certainly help us make FME more visible to more people. Okay, we're in the Q&A. So, oops. What questions did we have today? I haven't been watching for a while. Kezia or Jenna, did you have any particular questions that you wanted to talk about or to highlight?
I'm just taking a look right now as well.
Well, I see a couple of questions. One obvious was, is the 90-minute FME Accelerator training free? Yes, it is. You can find it on our website, safe.com/accelerator. And yeah, and the link for the ebook has been chatted out as well.
One that jumps out is from Shawshank, where he asked, he has no idea about coding, but they can still create web apps using FME Server.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, maybe let me just share my screen for 2 seconds, just to show that. But I mean, a lot of what I did here was looked fairly complicated, but it really wasn't. We have FME Desktop. We create a workflow in here. We publish it to server, and then we just go to the server apps and say, "Hey, create me a Workspace app." And you saw this earlier. It just said, "Well, which workspace do you want?" And we pick the workspace, and FME basically generates a website for you with that as a sort of submission page. So yeah, there's no worries about any sort of coding if you don't want to.
Nice. And another question from Chidit. I think this goes back to the gallery app that you were sharing earlier. Would you be able to share the workspace of the HTML report to mimic the server app?
I think we can do that. I can make that workspace available. It'll probably go out with an email, the follow-up email, and also it'll be on the webinar page as well. So you can see, and I'll take some of the bits out that aren't relevant, but yeah, I'll give you the basics there. I see the question underneath that actually was, can you create a dashboard in FME Server? Which, yes, we do have a dashboard tool. I'm not sure where to find that, but I know it exists and I've used it before. But yeah, you can also create a sort of dashboard in the same way. Like you could say this community cafe is a dashboard, and like community badges, if I click on that, there's a badge leaderboard. So this could be sort of a dashboard to metrics about anything really. And what it's doing now is it's pulling this information from a database somewhere to generate a live leaderboard for badges. So I can see a lot of folk already today have been getting their webinar watcher badge on there. A couple of folk have been playing the City Guesser recently as well, so that's great. Yeah, so that's just an example of how you could create a dashboard using this functionality. But if it was a dashboard about server itself, about the performance of server and that sort of thing, there are dashboard tools in here somewhere to do that.
And I'm not sure if we have time, but just Jen Hugh asked if we could repeat the automation apps part. I apologize if I went too quick for that section. If there's time, I can showcase that really quickly and run that over. I'll just share my screen and take over.
Yeah,
really
let
quick.
me. Oops.
So automation apps is a type of server app that is built on top of automations. And in FME Server, there are different types of automations that allow you to kick off workflows to run workspaces that can be ran in parallel or chained one after another. So a manual trigger automation is where you have to manually trigger and kickstart the automation. And here we have a canvas to build out the automation. Here we have trigger, and we can click the manage keys section where you can create keys to be entered into the workspace as parameters. So for example, I have the file key, and you can name the key as file. And also the geometry key, which is for geometry. Once these keys are created, then you can go to the workspace that you'd like to run. And let's see, find the right workspace. Or I'll just jump into the automation that's already built. Oh, I must be in the wrong one. Okay, and this is where you can link these keys to the parameter. And then from there, you can build the server app in server apps and then build automation apps. And here you fill in the parameters again, but selecting this correct automation as well as the parameters. You can set default values here for the user to see. And you can also tailor which parameters you want to be shown in the app. We have testing 1. And here we have a quick demo for that. And here, because the default value is set, once the user opens it, the app, then you can see the default value is set already, but they can also go back in and select other files. So yeah, hopefully we still have time for, I didn't take up too much time, but are there any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few questions coming in. I mean, if folks need to leave, perhaps we can just do the wrap up part, and then if there's still a couple of questions left, if folk want to stay on, we'll try and answer them. Is that okay with you, Elizabeth, if we do that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Well, okay. So, I mean, we'll just say thank you to everyone. It's always great to see so many people attending one of these webinars and learning more about this. And we really want any help that we can give you. We'll do the best we can. So get in touch if you do need any assistance. But yeah, I mean, the follow-ups, download FME, give it a free trial, upgrade if you want, chat, connect in the community, all sorts of things you can do. Let us know. And you've got the webinar survey as well that you can give us some feedback as well on how the webinar went today. Let's see. Oh, that was the last slide. So there we go. So again, on behalf of everyone at SAFE, thank you for attending today. And we'll say goodbye to you. But if you want to, we'll stay on. We'll do a few more questions because I know there are a couple of things that a few questions that got answered, but I think we can expand on some of them. And Jenna and Kezia, please jump in to tell me if I'm wrong at any point on any of these, or if you've got extra info to add. So one question at the beginning was, you can't do data downloading and data streaming at the same time, which is true because both of them are sort of streaming in a way. The data downloading is like streaming a URL, a page with a URL on for the user to get. So we can't do 2 streams at once, but you could, instead of doing the data download, you could just write the data somewhere and have the user tell the user where it is, send them an email or something like that, so they can fetch it, and you could stream the data at the same time. So if you wanted to do that, you could. There was a question about enabling styling for the Workspace app pages. So I put a question into the developers recently and said, hey, could we get an upgrade for this? And they said, well, we've got no plans to do any more styling improvements. But I think that would change if enough people wanted them. And I see that question got 7 upvotes. So I'm guessing that a lot of people do want more styling options. So, and I'm seeing thumbs up as well. So the best I can say for that is put an idea on the community and upvote it, and we will see that. And the more upvotes it gets, the more people will know. Plus, it lets you tell us what specific improvements you'd like to see, like the text spacing and the apps. Yeah, one of the things I'd like to do is in a gallery app, all of the Workspace apps are in a long sort of stream across the screen, and it'd be nice if you could sort of have them in a group, maybe on the left, vertical or whatever. But yeah. In the Workspace, you didn't see a parameter fetcher. You can fetch a parameter using a different transformer like the attribute manager, attribute creator, and that's fairly straightforward. Were there any other questions? If a user starts, a lot of users start the automation at the same time, you only have one engine, I guess it queues them up. Users won't know that, but you could stream information back to them as a HTML, I guess, and say, hey, this is running now. And you can maybe even use the API to ping the server and say, okay, are we running this or is it in a queue? And if it's in a queue, then you could sort of tell the user yourself, hey, it's queued up. So I think it is possible. Yeah, and questions at the top about integrating FME to existing web applications, uses an API of sorts. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. I don't know if Kezia or Jenna, do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's really multiple ways to do that depending on what your use case is really. But if we're going for, if you're just looking to create or get something from an existing API, you could always use the HTTP caller from desktop. Or if you're looking to integrate with existing, maybe FME REST API could be something you could integrate into your Workspace. I don't know what the exact use case is here, but you could look into either of those, the FME REST API or looking to get data from third-party APIs using the HTTP caller. Yeah,
I was thinking that, and also if you want to run a Workspace through your website, that's straightforward enough. Like I'm just going to pick a Workspace at random, and if I look, so this is the Run Workspace dialog. And if I open the advanced panel, you can see options there to create the Workspace app, also to create a webhook. So I can say, well, create a webhook and click OK. And what it does is it gives me a URL to run that Workspace with the FME token as well, if necessary. So you could add that as a link so that somebody could just click on something on your website and it runs this Workspace in the background and puts data somewhere or streams it back or something like that. So yes, if you're talking about using FME as an API of sorts, then I think that's how you do it, using webhooks like that. But again, as we said, you can also use the HTTP caller inside FME to hit APIs from within FME as well. So you've got both options there. Yeah, the other question there was about incorporating SSO for security, and I don't know about that. I can't honestly say. So unless Kezia or Jenna know about that, then I don't think I can answer that one right now.
From my understanding, we do have single sign-on capabilities that you can add for FME Server with Windows authentication. I think there will be, I think there might be more options in 2023, but there is already single sign-on available with Windows, I believe, currently, and there's also Azure Active Directory that you can use to sign on to FME Server. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
I
not.
can find some more
Oh,
resources.
sorry.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say I'm not logged in as a super user, so I don't know if I can see it, but I can see that there are various authentication services available, like Windows Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, things like that. So if that can help,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's all I can see. Well, I think we've done pretty much all we can, and we've gone over a little bit, but yeah. Again, thank you for everyone for joining. It's really great to be able to talk FME with some very obviously interested and motivated people, and I hope this was useful for you. So,
And thanks to our amazing presenters as well. Thanks for putting this together, everyone.
cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, folks. Goodbye.
Bye for now.
Bye.